Hello everyone, I'm Jennymar Punay, BSed 2B Mathematics students. My assigned topics under legal are Republic Act number 8371 Indigenous Peoples' Right Act and Presidential Decree number 603. Republic Act number 8371 Indigenous Peoples' Right Act is an act to recognize, protect, and promote the rights of indigenous cultural communities or indigenous people, creating a national commission on indigenous peoples, establishing implementing mechanism, appropriating fund, therefore, and for the other purposes. Republic Act number 8371 is also known as Indigenous Peoples Act of 1997. Brief historical background. First, the indigenous peoples are among the poorest sector of the Philippine society and also among powerless. Why indigenous peoples are considered powerless and poorest sector of the Philippines? That is because indigenous people are tend to live in rural areas, have lower education, low level of income and assets, no or limited infrastructure that will help them improve. Next, the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act was enacted on October 29, 1997 and took effect on November 22, 1997, precisely to address the marginalization and powerlessness of the indigenous cultural communities. Definition of terms. First, indigenous cultural communities or ICCs or indigenous peoples or IPs refer to a group of people or homogeneous societies identified by self-ascription and ascription by others who have continuously lived as organized community or communally bounded and defined territory. Other definition, indigenous people, it refers to people who lived there before colonists or settlers arrived, or describe any group of people native to a specific region. Next is National Commission on Indigenous People or NCIP, refers to the office created under this act, which shall be under the office of the President and shall be the primarily government agency responsible for the formulation and implementation of policies, plans, and programs to recognize, protect, and promote the rights of ICCs or IPs. So, NCIP or National Commission on Indigenous People is the office that is responsible for the formulation and implementation of policies, plans, and programs in order to recognize, protect, and promote the rights of indigenous people. The Chapter 5 of Republic Act number 8371 is Social Justice and Human Rights. Under of this is Section 21, Equal Protection Before Law, with due recognition of the ICCs or IPs and distinct characteristics and identity, the state shall accord to members of the ICCs or IPs or indigenous people the rights, protections, and privileges enjoyed by the rest of the citizenry. It means that the state shall give equal protection or treatment, rights, and privileges to every member of the indigenous people, despite of their differences they have. They should be treated in the same manner as others, in similar conditions and circumstances. Next is Section 23, Freedom from Discrimination. Indigenous people are free and equal to all other individuals in their dignity as human beings and shall be free from any kind of adverse discrimination for reason of their indigenous origin or identity. It means that The indigenous people should be free from all discrimination like recruitment, conditions of employment, and any kind of discrimination. They should be treated fairly as human beings and give full respect regardless of their identity. Now let's move on to Chapter 6, Cultural Integrity. Under this is Section 29, Protection of Indigenous Culture, Tradition, and Institutions. The state shall respect, recognize, and protect the right of indigenous cultural communities or indigenous peoples to preserve and protect their culture, traditions, and institutions. It shall consider these rights in the formulation and application of national plans and policies. It means that the government, the government or the state should give protection to the culture, traditions, and institution of the indigenous people because it is the right of indigenous people to be respected, recognized, and protected in order to preserve their culture, traditions, and institution. Next is Section 30, Educational System. The state shall provide equal access to various cultural opportunities to the indigenous cultural communities or indigenous peoples through the educational system, public or private cultural entities, scholarships, grants, and other incentives without prejudice to the right to establish and control their educational systems and institutions by providing education in their own language in a manner appropriate to their cultural methods of teaching and learning. Meaning the government should give equal access to numerous cultural opportunities to the indigenous people to help them motivate in their teaching and learning by giving scholarships to the children or youth, grants or funds to the institution, and other incentives without any judgment of their right. Also, it is the right of the indigenous children or youth to access all levels and forms of education of the state. Next is Section 31, Recognition of Cultural Diversity. The state shall endeavor to have the dignity and diversity of the cultures, traditions, histories, and aspiration of the indigenous cultural communities or indigenous people appropriately reflected in all forms of education, public information, and cultural educational exchange. It means that it is the right of the indigenous people to be respected and recognize their dignity and diversity of their cultures, traditions, history, and aspiration. Also, the state shall do consultation with the concerns of indigenous people with regards to their participation in different events in order to eliminate or avoid judgment and discrimination. The events like festivals, conferences, seminars, and more that will promote and enhance their distinct heritage and values. We should recognize and accept the cultural diversity of one another so that we will be united and have a better understanding to one another. This Section 31, Recognition of Cultural Diversity, we can apply this in the classroom. As a future teacher, we should acknowledge and respect the different culture, traditions, and religion of our students so that we will have a healthy environment or to have a good relationship to our students. Like um, like doing festivals. So when I was in grade 9, during ato nga time sa among PE subject, our topic anak about festivals. So we are assigned to perform a certain festivals. Ug ato sad nga time kanang ting perform sa tambayayang festival sa Tabango. So our teacher gipa-join na lang mi ato nga tambayayang festival para sa yun ras amo And most of us kay Roman Catholic believers man, so mi join ni. But those nga mga estudyante nga among mga classmate nga dili Roman Catholic believers, so may refuse sila ato nga ma-perform. Then ing-ask sila sa among teacher nga ma-perform man sa lain nga festivals nga dili prohibited sa ilang religion. Og wa sila pugsa sa among teacher nga mo-perform ato nga tambayayong festival. So our teacher give them another activities nga naa say connection with the prior activity. Now let's proceed to chapter 7, the National Commission on Indigenous People, or NCIP. Section 46, offices within the NCIP. The NCIP, or the National Commission on Indigenous People, shall have the following offices, which shall be responsible for the implementation of the policies hereinafter provided. So there are a lot of offices within the National Commission on Indigenous People, but I only include 3 offices here. So the first one is Office of Education, Culture, and Health. These offices shall be responsible for the effective implementation of the education, cultural, and related rights as provided in this Act. It shall assess, promote, and support community schools, both formal and non-formal, for the benefit of the local indigenous community. Meaning, the Office of Education, Culture, and Health are the offices that are responsible for the implementation of the education, cultural, and related rights. These offices are the ones who provided scholarship programs and other educational rights intended for the indigenous people beneficiaries, in coordination with the Department of Education, or DepEd, Culture and Sports, and the Commission on Higher Education. Also, these offices are the ones who undertake a special program which includes language and vocational training, public health, and family assistance program and related subjects. Next office is the Office on Socio-Economic Services and Special Concerns. The Office on Social-Economic Services and Special Concern shall serve as the office through which the NCIP shall coordinate with pertinent government agencies, especially charged with the implementation of various basic socio-economic services, policies, plans, and programs affecting the indigenous people to ensure that the same are properly and directly enjoyed by them. It means that this office is in charge for the implementation of numerous basic socio-economic services, policies, plans, and programs. Next is the Office of Empowerment and Human Rights. The Office of Empowerment and Human Rights shall ensure that the indigenous socio-political, cultural, and economic rights are respected and recognized. It means that it is the office that is responsible for ensuring the rights of indigenous people that need to be respected and recognized in terms of socio-political, cultural, and economic. And that's all about my report about the Republic Act number 8371. And if you want to have further information or discussion about this act, or if you want to know the entire content of this act, you can search it on the internet, since we cannot tackle all the chapters and sections here because we will have a limited time, and then this is not the only act that we will tackle in this semester. We have a lot more of legal basis pa man nga i-tackle. And that's all. And then thank you for listening.